AATBirds Weekly Report is the Eagle news, notes, and analysis you need.
Quick, he's going to go. What a give it to Smith, and they stop him again. Go back. He looks, fires for the end zone, intercepted, the 20, the 10, the 5, touchdown, Matt Ware, midfield, he's going to go, Deshaun Jackson. He steps up, he's hit, and falls forward, and he fumbles the football, and the Eagles have it. It's one, and the Eagles win.
It's all birds, all the time.
And welcome to another edition of the AATBirds Weekly Report. I myself, Johnny Leka, is joined finally again by Kendall at Quebec Eagles. We're going to get into the training camp. It's been a little bit over a week of training camp for the Eagles. Get into some surprises, some disappointments maybe. I want to kind of get Kendall's thoughts on this training camp going into the preseason with a couple things. And we're going to talk about the Kelly Green. I see Kendall is sporting his Kelly Green hoodie there, a little throwback there. They're back. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about that because there was a lot with that, whether it's the Eagle social media, throwing a little bit of some shade at the fans, teasing them a little bit. And then all of a sudden it gets, it gets released before it's supposed to get released and all that good stuff. But I want to talk a little bit about that because it is an iconic jersey. It's an iconic color. We've been asking for it for years. But Kendall, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back. Excited to be back, talk some ball, ready for the season to start. Training camp is finally here, and we're already, 2 weeks in now? So season's going to be here before you know it.
Adam, check in. What's up, Adam? Yeah, it's interesting. Because when you look at all around across the league, and you and I mentioned it, and I want to bring it up first. When you're looking at this team, the big thing is you look at all the young players and everything, but it's the injuries. We've seen it with a couple of teams and some pretty well-known players getting hurt. Now, some not out for the season, but you saw Joe Burrow get hurt. Kalijah Cansey for Tampa Bay gets hurt. You saw Tim Patrick, unfortunately, go down with another Achilles injury. Stuff like that does happen. And I think I've mentioned it multiple times. I know you've said it too. It's the injury bug. The Eagles have been really lucky the last couple of seasons when it comes to, injuries, and you're not going to be immune to it. You're going to have injuries. So for me, looking at this, I'm hoping you can kind of avoid the major injuries like they have the last couple of seasons, because depth-wise, you want to be okay going into the season. But what are your take on all these injuries and everything that's kind of going on?
Yeah, I feel like the Eagles staff has done a really good job past couple of years of just resting players and not being overload in practice. We've seen it the past 2 years with Sirianni. He pretty much emphasizes rest and taking care of your health. And I think that's a big part of why we saw all 22 starters in the Super Bowl last year. Sometimes you can't control injuries, like Achilles injuries, it can literally just happen off the jump. So very fortunate there hasn't been any injuries yet. But from the sounds of it, camp has been going well and everything is happening the way you want it. So I'm not going for that.
And that's the biggest thing when you look at camp and Jalen Hurts, looking like he did last year. And that's one thing that you want to see. You want to see him take that step up in his performance. And hopefully we see that. But all in all, looking at some of these guys, some of these surprises that I happen to see was I saw Kayvon Wallace getting some reps with the first team. You saw Quez Watkins, talking about he's an elite receiver, maybe trying to pump himself up a little bit. But I think the biggest thing was the Kayvon thing. I don't know if they're just kind of holding the rookies, putting them on the second, third teams to kind of get themselves acclimated. I know they have done that before. Guys like Jalen Carter, though, is playing a little bit more on the on the first team, first, second teams. But, a guy like Kayvon Wallace, this is his time, because if he can't do it, I'm not sure he makes the roster. And yes, he's a valuable special teams player. And the Eagles did work out DeAndre Houston Carson as well. And yeah, they signed Justin Evans and they signed Terrell Edmonds. And, you have these, they drafted Sidney Brown. So, Kayvon Wallace, this is his time if he wants to show up to be able to take that to the next level in training camp and in the preseason games, because we really haven't seen it yet. And, it's a shame, because I thought he was going to be a certain type of player, but of course we have not seen that yet.
Yeah. I mean, I think since last training camp, I kind of figured Kayvon's time was done, but I do think there's like a legit chance he has like a role in this defense, because I think he's what they want Terrell Edmonds to be. I think they're going to be using two safeties, but I think the strong safety is going to be more just in the box and pretty much just like a linebacker, which is why I don't think they're desperate for for linebacker. That would be a great one. Kayvon was phenomenal last year, coming in for Chauncey when he went down. I think he obviously lacks some traits to be like a high level starting safety, but if you can just leave him down there, between the tackles and make plays and force fumbles, I think you can get away with that. And then with also Sean Desai, with new scheme, you kind of want just veterans who are familiar with just like what they want exactly. These rookies are underdeveloped. They aren't really adjusted to the game fully. So I think we're going to see a lot of Kayvon early this year, especially if Edmonds isn't really bringing what they want. I know they're both pretty physical, but I think Kayvon has more of that big pop potential. So I think they're comfortable with what they have right now. And Reed Blankenship, I think he's going to be. I don't think he's getting enough attention in regards of like could have a big season. Everyone's saying, "Oh, go get Buda Baker," blah blah blah. No, I think you have to give Reed a shot until he proves otherwise. And so, we'll see what happens, but I just think Reed Blankenship and then with a mixture of Edmonds and Wallace is going to be fine just for the time being.
And you look at the secondary, and you look at, I go and I look at the cornerback position, and it's a lot deeper than it was last year. And you still have Slay and Bradbury, of course. You got Greedy Williams. You have Josh Jobe. You have, of course, your slot cornerbacks with Zach McPherson moving to play slot with Avante, and you have Josiah Scott. And then you look at the young players, and you look at a guy like, can't think of his name now.
Josh Jobe?
No, I said Josh Jobe. Can't think of Keely Ringo.
Ringo.
Yeah, it was not popping in my head.
There's so many names we could probably go for days.
Yeah, I know. When it comes to training camp, you have the 90-man roster, but you have a guy like Keely Ringo who basically is almost like it's a red shirt year, if you really think about it, because who do you have on the roster? You have maybe 6 corners that are going to make the team out of the 53, and they have a whole. You're going to let go of some high quality players that you can hope can make it to your practice squad. And I think there are some positions like that. And I know you talked about Buda Baker. My feeling is, I think I'm talking about the position. If they make a move in the position on defense, it's going to be linebacker, in my opinion, getting a veteran. I know a player that you talked about, Quan Alexander, did just recently sign.
That sucked to see.
Yeah. So with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I believe, but like that would be one for me because you have Nakobe Dean. We really don't know with Nakobe what he is. He is still young, a second-year player, didn't play all that much last year. You have a guy like Nick Morrow who did play for Chicago and did play a lot last couple of seasons with the Raiders in Chicago. But for me, looking at those two guys, but then you have Christian Ellis and then Davion Taylor, and the depth just isn't there. Christian Ellis is a really good special teamer. Does he maybe fill out a role like a TJ Edwards did after a couple seasons with the Eagles, getting a chance to finally get better? I don't know that, but I think that is where you could see a veteran added. I don't think safety really at this point now, after, going out and getting, two players and veterans in Evans and Edmonds, having Reed Blankenship there, drafting Sidney Brown. I just don't think there's a spot to add a big level safety, in my opinion. I think it's linebacker, getting a veteran, not getting a star player or a player that's going to cost you a ton of money or a ton of, assets or picks or anything like that. But looking at maybe getting a veteran who's either on the last year of his contract, or a veteran that gets cut, or a veteran that's on the market right now. I think that's where you look at, because right now it's unknown what you have there.
There's not too many, like everyone knows that Howie Rosen likes to sign guys with a year left in their deal. There's not too many like established safeties that have a year left in their contract, like Chauncey was last year. I mean, Chauncey's available, obviously. He's still going to stay in Detroit. But I think what it comes down to is Nicholas Morrow, which he's had a okay camp. He hasn't been great in coverage from what I've heard, or from what I saw from reports. I think if he can't be competent and he can't bring you what you need, and then I think that's when they pivot to looking for, somebody who's available in the trade market or a free agent. I really wanted to see Quan Alexander sign, because I think he's a very physical, and he's not great, as a pass coverage linebacker, but he's really good making tackles. But Christian Ellis has been phenomenal from what we've heard during training camp and OTAs. He seems pretty good all around, as a pass cover and a tackler. We haven't heard much from Nakobe, but I don't know what their options really are. And I think they're kind of also at a stalemate of like trying to figure out what they can do. So, and then as for the corners, like there's so many guys that, like you said, they're going to leave. There's going to be at least 3 guys who don't make the roster, who I'm willing to bet either sign with a team, or the Eagles won't be able to get into the practice squad, because like someone like Mekhi Garner, apparently like yesterday he had like one of the biggest hits they've seen in camp for a long time. And so, or like Eli Ricks, Mario Goodrich has been getting reps in this slot as a first team corner. So they have a lot of guys they want, and they don't have the spots for it, because defensive ends are really crowded. They're going to need to keep a couple wide receivers like Britton Covey, even though he's just a specialist. Really, he's going to be counted as a wide receiver. So even like a lineman, how they keep linemen to develop. So they're having some tough decisions to make, and it's going to come down just to pretty much in preseason how these guys perform.
And I think another thing, and you're looking at the offensive line, bringing up, linemen and the offensive line too, is, Cam Jurgens getting that first nod at right guard. Him and Tyler Steen seem to be the 2 guys. I know Driscoll has played on the right side.
I think it's Jurgens' job. I don't think he's going to lose it. I don't even think it's competition anymore, based off how camp has gone the first 5 days.
Yeah, it's Jurgens' job to lose. And if he's able to, take control of that, then you get your second round pick from last year on the field, and he's not sitting on the bench again, as your all pro center is still in the league and still playing. When you look at the offensive line and how amazing the offensive line is, and what you have up front there, and then you look at the veterans, they did sign, we mentioned it last episode, they did sign Dennis Kelly, swing offensive line, veteran offensive lineman. He comes back to the Eagles. I think that's something that I wanted them to do. I wanted them to get a veteran who can play multiple positions, but also has been in the league a while, because, for me, that helps the offensive line, because it's tough when you have somebody go out and you have to rely on a super young guy who really hasn't done it before. And something like the Eagles always like to have those type of players who can play multiple positions and who are a veteran. It helps them out. Dennis Kelly really hasn't played awful. He's not a all-pro,
he's definitely competent
player, but he's a solid player, rotational player to come in there. And I think that's great. Having Driscoll, those type of guys, I think is pivotal, and it's key for the offensive line.
And like he can play both. Like he could play if he had to, he could play all three positions: center, guard, and tackle. Like he's very versatile, and that was like a big emphasis during the Eagles Super Bowl year in 2017. Like Stefan Wisniewski, like he wasn't supposed to be the guy, but they needed him, and he kind of filled the void. And he performed well. And if they don't have him, like who knows what that offensive line looks like and the protection for Foles back then. And so I think Dennis Kelly kind of fills that same role. And another comparison I thought about earlier was the running backs compared to the 2017 team. Like last year, this is obviously like kind of like Miles Sanders' like offense. Obviously, you splash in Kenny Gainwell and whatnot, but like this year's, it's going to be a completely different like backfield. You're going to have Swift, you're going to have Penny, you're going to have Gainwell, and maybe even Sermon gets some looks. Like all these guys, they're going to be feeding everybody, and this is just not like one person's offense. Back in 2017, when it won the Super Bowl, it was Clement, it was Ajayi, it was Blunt, and before Sproles got hurt, he was even in there. So like, I think they're going to use Swift very versatily. They're going to use Rashad for like a Blunt role, and then with Gainwell, very similar to like Sproles and Clement, out of the backfield, third down situations. So I think this backfield has so much potential, and especially with this offensive line, with how deep it is, I think the only thing that's going to be limiting the running back's ceiling is just themselves and injuries.
And that's a good comparison. I didn't really think about the 2017 team when you're looking at this running back group. That is a really good comparison because it does kind of line up with a couple of the different guys that they had on the squad and able to do different things. And I'm really interested to see how they use a guy like DeAndre Swift. Do they get more creative with the running back out of the backfield, throwing to the backs, doing that kind of stuff? Because I feel if they're able to get that going and to be able to do that with this offense and the way that the offense was last year, it just gives you another dimension to the offense and just kind of puts it on that extra level. And that's pretty dangerous to think about because when you look at this offense and look at the playmakers and look at everything, if you can make the offense go to another level when it's already towards the top, if towards the top in the league, is pretty crazy and pretty scary when you look at opposing defenses that have to account and cover these different playmakers and these different things that they're able to do.
And I feel like last year, obviously, we didn't see enough of the running back catching the ball, but like even like the screens, I feel like we saw like more screens from Goddard than we did or from Quez, the outside guys, than we did running backs. Like that was a big Doug Peterson play, like screens for running backs, and it never really failed because it was kind of predictable and didn't really use it well in situations. But I think that's what Sirianni and Brian Johnson are going to try to do is mix in those running back screens, running backs out in the flats, because that's only going to help improve your offense, and it's going to force defenses to be more disciplined. So I think Sirianni's mindset is going to be, as a running back, with the exception of probably Penny, is you have to catch the ball in this offense. And if you can't do that, you're not going to be seeing the field. So,
yeah. And I think another thing is when you look at a player like Rashad Penny and his health, if he's able to stay healthy, that's another, dynamic playmaker being able to do something, because his yards per carry is through the roof when you look at all the other backs and his size and what he can do when he hits the hole. That's again another thing that is very tantalizing when you look at this offense. And I don't know, it's just you don't hear a lot with camp. Of course, camp you got to take a little bit with a grain of salt too, because a lot of people like to take tidbits from here and there and think everything. I like the practices when they're able to do the practices with the other teams. I feel like you get a lot more out of that, almost like a pseudo preseason type of atmosphere.
Joint practices are going to be the new normal within probably next year. I'm willing to bet next year we're probably going to have maybe one preseason game per team. There's just no point in having the three. I'm willing to bet this time last year, I'd say maybe half the league was doing joint practices. Now you look at it, it's almost every single team.
Yeah. And really, what are you going to see the Eagles players maybe play a series and that's about it, like they did last year?
It's
all in all, it's just you know, the younger guys, maybe they're able to show something, to put some, you know, tape out there to maybe either get picked up by another team, make the practice squad, make the roster. You know, for me, you know, looking at that, I agree with you when it looks at the preseason games. I could see maybe just two, maybe not one, but maybe just two, knocking one more off and just doing two. Because I do think it is a little beneficial for the younger guys able to get reps. I know during practices, you really don't get that. And yeah, practices, you get some reps, but I feel like the live game atmosphere reps against other guys, I think that's where the preseason games are beneficial for them. But for the starters and guys that you know are going to make the team, really preseason games, if you have a guy out there way too long, it's a risk, because if someone gets a major injury, then you have a problem. Now, of course, they can get a major injury in practice and everything there too, but I don't know. I think two would be the only one. What do you think of, I know I've seen it a couple of times, the Nick Sirianni getting real fired up at these guys, yelling at them, everything. I have something that I thought about when I saw that and seeing what he's doing, not to be kind of complacent, it's almost like after they won the Super Bowl, it just seemed like Doug kind of got too comfortable. And when you do that, you let your guard down and you're able to the players just kind of have it at their own pace and do it at their own pace. And then again, you look at the last number of seasons Doug was here. So you look at 18 and 19. Now, I'm not counting 20 because 20 was an absolute train wreck. But you look at 2018 and 2019, they started the season very slow and then had to pick it up and basically almost win out, if not win out, to make a playoff spot. And I feel like what Sirianni's doing is letting these guys know from the jump, we're not going to be complacent. Yeah. We're not going to think that teams are just going to roll over. And I feel like that's a great message that he's sending to these guys.
Yeah, if people don't realize by now, they know it now. Like, it's everything Nick Sirianni does is calculated. Like, when we saw like the first thing of practice, like reporters are putting out about how Sirianni like teed off on the receivers or the offense for being sloppy. Like, sure, you know, that's annoying as a coach, but it's like you're not like emphasizing your frustration like that off rip. Like, that's calculated. You're doing that just to keep these guys like, hey, like, no more fucking around. Like, what happened last year happened, but we're not going to let it happen again. And I think that probably comes from like the front office too. I think Howie probably, you know, was given the same message, because once, like you said about Doug getting comfortable after 2017, I'm sure Wentz was the same way. And that's what's kind of like different about Hurts, is like this man's always like trying to win. He doesn't want to be like, he doesn't want to be settled for less. So Sirianni's definitely doing this intentionally. I hope it doesn't come across as, you know, BS from the players, but, you know, at some point he's probably got to take it back a little bit and realize, hey, like, you know, we got to forget about last year and got to focus on what's going on this year. But I think to tail off that, I think my biggest concern going into the season, and I don't want to say concern, but just like skeptical situation to monitor is Brian Johnson and Sean Desai. I don't know if these guys are fully capable of controlling, you know, an offense or a defense. It's going to be a big test for them, probably even in the preseason, just to get in the game flow of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Brian Johnson has learned a lot from being in college. He's called plays in Florida. I'm sure Sean Desai, he's called plays before, but it's about getting used to the flow and then making the adjustments like Shane Steichen did last year, or Jonathan Gannon, which he never really made adjustments. So, but you get the point. So I think those are the biggest question marks. Those are the biggest question marks going into this season.
No, and you're right with that. It is very interesting to see what these guys are going to have and what they're going to be able to put out there. I think that's a great thing. And I posted, I think it was about maybe 2 weeks ago. It was Louis Riddick was talking on one of the ESPN shows.
Yeah, I think I saw a video
about top quarterbacks, and it mentioned about Jalen Hurts, and then the not the camaraderie, but the familiarity
No,
with
yeah,
with
for
the
sure.
guys, and it makes sense too, because the one thing about Brian Johnson is, yes, he's new offensive coordinator, but him and Jalen Hurts has known each other forever, and I think that's very good to already have, is that familiarity between the two. It's not a new, a guy just learning this, another guy. It's they already
Yeah,
kind of know each other. He was already in the building. I think that's big. I think the defensive side of the ball is what's going to be a little bit different. Let's see what Sean Desai can do. I am very interested to see what he does with the defense, how he lines up the corners. Do they play a little bit press? Do they play zone, but do they hit their ceiling? What they do, blitzing, or the types of schemes, how they run. Do they do 5-1 set? Do they do 5-2? Do they do, different things? How many corners, how many safeties? That's all going to be interesting. And of course, we're not really going to know until the first game of the season. No team really
yeah.
shows what they do in the preseason. But I think Sean Desai is more of, what are we going to get with him at calling this defense and running this defense? Not that
Yeah.
I am worried about it, but I'm intrigued to see what he does and see if he can elevate this team defensively, which is, pretty big to say when you basically had a team record, almost an NFL record in sacks, and you were able to make it all the way to the Super Bowl. So let's
Yeah.
see what he does in the offensive side of the ball. I think I'm okay as of right now, because you still have Nick in there. And you still have some of the other guys who were there, Kevin Patullo, you have Brian Johnson, you have some of the guys already in place there. So I
Yeah.
think it's the Sean Desai aspect that I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does.
I think we're probably going to see growing pains the most, probably from Desai, only because like Brian Johnson was here last year. He has a good idea what Sirianni wants, as like tempo wise and schematically. I think Desai, I think he's going to bring a lot more creativity in terms of like just not being like this complacent. Like again, I don't mean to bring up Gannon, but last year he settled a lot and would fail to make adjustments. I think Desai is going to look to get creative, show different fronts, because they have the bodies to do that. They have so many different athletic defensive tackles, or defensive ends, or even like the secondary is pretty deep and versatile. So I think it's about getting over the growing pains, and it's going to happen. Like they're going to have growing pains start the season, and people are going to be like, "Oh my god, get Desai out of here!" But it's like, this is a new team for him. These are a bunch of new players for him. He's got to adjust and got to give him time. Now, if we're sitting here in week 10 or we still have questions, that's an issue, because there's too many talented guys to be having questions. So you just hope to see that things don't get so bad where it spirals out of hand.
No, you're right there. So last week we talked about some type of predictions that we have. I kind of want to get your prediction for whether it's preseason, training camp. What's one thing that you think is going to happen? Whether a player is going to get cut that you don't think, whether a player is going to jump that you don't think. What would you say is your prediction?
I got a bunch of them.
Go ahead, lay them out. We can talk about them.
So I think the Eagles are going to be carrying. This is a hot take, but I think they're going to be carrying a lot of corners into week 1. I think some of those guys are just so athletically gifted that you just can't let them hit the market. I wouldn't be surprised. Like you have Slay, Bradbury, Maddox, Ringo, McPherson is probably going to make it. Job's probably going to make it. And then from there, I wouldn't be surprised if like a Mekhi Gardner or like a Mario Goodrich, like he's been getting first team reps in the slot. I wouldn't be surprised if they carry 7 into the season. Same can be said the opposite of linebackers. I wouldn't be surprised if they walked in with 3, maybe even 4.
Yeah.
You sign Davion Taylor to practice squad, you promote him during game day, and then I mean, as in regards of like structure of the roster and what can happen. I mean, Howie's always making moves before the season starts. I think has like over like 15 plus like preseason trades since getting back as a full-time GM. He's going to make a move, whether it's a big-time splash,
Yeah, I
which
agree with you.
is possible with cap wise, but I don't know who that would be, or signing a free agent that can benefit the offense. Howie's going to 100% do something. It's just a matter of when, and when's probably very much going to be like after the preseason game, or maybe after the second one, once they have a pretty good idea of joint practices and when they see the tape against preseason of maybe where their weaknesses are. And then you want like a in season prediction, or just like
You don't have to do it in season because we could do that later
okay.
after the preseason stuff. More of a kind of like a training camp going into the preseasons or something that we can say. You don't have to do anything in season yet until we'll wait until maybe the end of this month to do
Yeah.
that. That's more
Okay.
of a in line of doing more in season
Okay.
type of predictions. But no,
So
it's
the
you make
one more
sense.
thing
Yeah.
I want to bring up is in terms of like the roster is the defensive ends. Like they are so deep that like it's almost like they're deeper than they are corners, which is like crazy to think about. Because so you have Graham, you have Sweat, you have obviously Hassan, and then you have like guys like Barnett, Janarius Robinson, like Patrick Johnson, who I think he filled in for Barnett last year, and I think he's a great Sam. Like, what are you going to do with those guys? Like, they have tough decisions to make, also on the defensive end, and I wouldn't be surprised if like we see Quez get moved because of they want to open a spot, let's say at defensive end or corner. Obviously, if Quez has a really good camp, we've heard how he's been making plays in day 3 and
Mhm.
whatnot. They don't love him necessarily, but if you get something for him and you like these young receivers you have with obviously Smitty and AJ and whoever else, you move him and you keep an extra corner or extra defensive end.
No, and I think the one thing is you talk about those corners, and one name that popped into my head that you can easily see them maybe getting rid of, especially if they like these young guys, is Greedy Williams.
I don't think he makes the roster. I'm going to be honest.
Just I think the only way he makes the roster is if there's some injuries and you have to keep a veteran. But just for me, looking at the roster, I like the signing when they did it. He has the tools. He's just never been able to really stay fully healthy for the Browns.
Yeah.
But when you look at you drafting Keely Ringo's not going anywhere. They traded assets to get him because they viewed him as a top, first, second round type of talent. The undrafted guys that they brought in, but more when you look at the undrafted from last year. Josh Drobe really made an effort. He played a lot of special teams, but he's been on the roster. This is his second year now. So, for me, I think he gets a look as well.
You don't make a roster as a undrafted free agent by coincidence. Like they have to really like you in order to keep you around. So
no, you're right. And they've had some really good luck when you look at undrafted free agents and signing guys and then being able to turn them into, quality players. Again, I always say that you can't think every single player is going to be an all pro and a pro bowler. It's just not the way it is. But if players do their jobs, they can make an impact. And I think a guy like TJ Edwards made a hell of an impact. Look at the contract he got and look what he did. You look at a guy now, Marcus Epps wasn't an undrafted free agent, but they claimed him off waivers. He was a 6th round pick for the Vikings. They claimed him off waivers and he turned himself into something. So Reed Blankenship from last year.
Yeah. The Eagles have been like very good at like having undrafted free agents. I think I had trying to figure out a tweet I put out, I think in like April or it was March. Yeah. Like they've said like TJ Edwards, Marcus Epps, Boston Scott, Alex Singleton, Reed Blankenship. Like who else? They have a bunch of names that they've gotten a lot of work out of from undrafted guys. And
you can even look at, in past years, in prior years, recently, a guy like Corey Clement, he undrafted free agent, make big plays in a Super Bowl. you have these type of players
Yeah, you're big.
that you're able to get quality, play out of and quality reps and be able to do those type of things, which is key. It's huge. And, you don't see it all the time. Not every undrafted free agent is going to be, a good
Right.
player for you. It's never like that. But I just think that you look at these guys, especially some of these corners, the Eli Ricks, the Mekhi Garners, Goodrich, and then you still have Josh Jobe. These guys able to make some plays, especially when you look into training camp, going into the preseason games.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very key when you look at guys like Greedy Williams or Josiah Scott, stuff like that. Because if Zach McPherson can show that he can be a capable slot corner, which I feel is where he's best suited, you're going to have some competition there as well. So that's going to be one group I cannot wait to watch because there's so much talent. And I think there's so much untapped potential when you look at some of these guys. So for me, I'm really interested to see that. But aside from the camp talk, I want to get into the last segment I want to talk about. And
one more thing about camp.
No, go ahead.
So I guess a surprise, would be like a true surprise to all of us, I think, would be like the Eagles being sellers in the preseason. Because once you have all these guys, all these bodies, there's going to be a need elsewhere. And if, again, like Greedy Williams, I don't think he makes the roster, but I'm sure there's going to be somebody out there who a corner gets hurt, like, Ramsey just got hurt. They signed Eli Apple. If someone gets hurt, they're going to need an insurance policy. And then let's say like a team is in win now mode, you'd be willing to give up that pick for, again, Greedy Williams isn't, necessarily a grade A starter, but he's at least competent enough to fulfill the void. So, or a Derek Barnett who, first round pick, he did
recently just restructure his contract too. So it kind of saved them a little bit there.
That might have been a bad example only just because they're probably only doing this to help them. But or someone like Patrick Johnson, I don't know. But
no, you're right.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're willing to sell rather than bring in during the deadline.
And they've done it before, so it's not like they've never done that. It is smart. You saw today, I saw the Pittsburgh Steelers put Corey Trice, their 7th round draft pick, who they were really had high hopes for. They put him on IR, got carted off the field. So you'll have players getting hurt, and if there's a need somewhere that you're able to trade someone for a late round pick, you got something out of somebody we're just going to cut anyway. So no, that's a good tidbit. I do think that is something that they would do. But brings me back to what I was saying was the Eagles have brought back the Kelly Greens. The Kelly Greens are released now. They were released on Sunday. They were leaked. And, we got to see this picture and everything. They were released, leaked out. But I will say they absolutely hit a home run here with this because it isn't like the 2010, the 1960 Kelly Green.
Yeah, it's different.
This is the Kelly Green from the 80s and 90s. And
it is different.
Every detail they have.
Like the Nike swoosh, perfect.
Yeah. The gray pants with the socks with the stripes. You have the nice big white eagle bird on the side. I think they hit a home run here. Now they're playing it against the one thing that I'm kind of not too happy with is they're playing against the Dolphins. Now I like the Dolphins on Sunday night in prime time. That's fine. But then they're playing the Bills. I would have thought they would have played an NFC East opponent, whether it's Washington, whether it's the Giants or the Cowboys. Now they're only wearing it. You can wear your alternate up to 3 times. They're wearing these twice. So also puts out, are they going to wear the black jerseys one time this year?
That's the thing. I'd imagine they're going to do one game all black, but I don't think
Christmas,
the black
maybe?
helmets are allowed because
no, the black helmets are not allowed. They'd have to wear the green. Helmet, like they have
because they didn't pass the rule, or at least I'm not aware of.
No, they don't have 3 helmets.
An extra alternate helmet, which is absolutely just stupid because it's like you just passed this rule for a alternate helmet. It's like, why not have an extra one? Like it's so. Makes no sense. Way more complex than it should be, and that's just the NFL for you.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It is funny, you're looking at all of this, and then of course, you look at the pro shop opening at 9 a.m. and the line. It just shows you the dedication with the fans and how much they love the Kelly Green and want the Kelly Green back. The one thing that this does suck is some fans are getting emails saying that their orders have been canceled and stuff like that. That's
No way.
yeah. There's been
I
some
haven't
that
seen that.
like, for Fanatics that were canceling the orders, which kind of sucks for some of the fans who were ordering
When
online.
when I ordered my Jalen Hurts rookie jersey, I think it came out like maybe a little bit like a month after he got drafted, and I ordered it. I want to say like end of May or something like that, and it didn't come until October. So I think this is what's going to happen with these jerseys. There's going to be like a little bit of a gap.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. I don't get it, but whenever there's like a new jersey that drops, there's always like a delay, and people are saying how some of their orders are expected like end of September, beginning of October.
Yeah.
So
I did see that. No, the other thing is I think like certain players, there's a group of players they're dropping now. Then there's a group of players that they're dropping next. So I know they had Mailata, they had Hurts, Devontae, AJ, but I know Reddick, they had Dawkins there, stuff like that. But my thing is, in the player that I'm gonna get, I want to get a BG one. Brandon Graham, he's going to be the longest tenured Eagle this year. He's going to be tied with Chuck Bednarik. If he plays 11 games, he's going to be the most Eagles with the most games played ever, beating out the 188 mark of David Akers. So there's a lot there. And of course, he follows All About the Birds page. He's a great person, really good player. He's an all-time Philadelphia Eagle. I think that's the player that I'm going to go with, just because he's an all-time Eagle, and to me, you can't go wrong. I don't want to get a player that, not saying that like these others, like Jalen and Devontae and AJ and all these other guys, but the thing is, you get a Brandon Graham. It's almost like that when you got it at the end of Dawkins' career, when you got a Dawkins jersey, or last couple of years he was with the Eagles, you got a Dawkins jersey. No matter what you wear it, it's Dawkins. It's not like and that's one thing. That's why I want to get BG.
Yeah, BG. He's just like an Eagles legend. Like, and there's a reason why they used him for the reveals, because he's like the way his career went was just exactly what Philly is. Like, he somewhat underwhelms, and then he hears the noise, he hears the criticism, and then he absolutely just rises to the scene. Now here he is, 34, going on 35. Dude had the career high in sacks last year. Like, BG is he's an all-time Bird, and I'm glad he's here to experience this, because was he here when they no, he wasn't drafted yet when they had him last, right? He was like 2 years after 2 years later.
For when?
The Kelly Green. Last time they wore them.
No, he's the last player 2010. He was drafted in 2010. Right. He wore in 2010 that Kelly Green, and he's gonna wear this one, which is it's pretty funny. It's pretty crazy, actually.
It's hard to do, man. It's hard to play for a team for 10 plus years in this league. A lot of adversity. A lot of tough decisions have to be made from a team, and there's speculation of him leaving this offseason, but he's sticking around. So,
yep. No, it's I just think they hit this out of the park. I know the elite version, which is the ones that all the players are wearing, the one that's the most expensive. That's dropping soon, I guess. But no, it's what I like is now with Kelly Green as their alternate, now they can release a lot more stuff. Now, you don't have to go to Mitchell and Ness always, or other sites to get retro Eagle stuff. So now the Eagles, like, they showed the sideline gear that they're going to wear and stuff like that. Like, there's more options there to get the Kelly Green and to bring that. And I think to me, it's huge, and I think it needs to be part of the uniform rotation. I don't think it needs to be the full-time uniform. I know people said that. I don't agree with that. They won in the midnight green. The midnight green, I love that color. That's forever. I grew up as a fan of the Eagles in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's midnight green. I love the black jerseys too, so hopefully they keep them as just wear those once a year, because I do like that. But the Kelly green, I don't think needs to be the full time, but if you have it as an alternate and you can always wear it every year, I like that aspect as well.
I feel like when you have such a high demand of like a jersey like this, I feel as if like there's a reason for it, and it's like maybe you shouldn't have like changed, like if it's not broke, don't fix it. And like these color greens, like there's a reason why we went 10 years like asking for them back. They're a very aesthetically pleasing look. I personally, this is a hot take, but like I don't love the midnight green. I think it's just like meh. Like I don't love the numbers, font. It's just, yes, it's obviously what we grew up watching, but it doesn't pop and shine, do like the same swagger, I guess you want to say, as the Kelly Greens do. And um, I mean, they're never going to go back to switching to Kelly Green full time unless there's a wicked like demand for it. But um, I would love to see them worn at least more than twice a year. But I also like the blacks as well, so can't have all
Yeah,
things.
and I think my one thing is, Nike in general, I'm not a huge fan of their jerseys. I like the Reebok. The Reebok, my midnight green was a little bit different shade, different color.
It was.
The Nike is different, of course. The fat, the material, all that. But when you look at the jerseys and buying the jerseys, I'm not going with like for my birthday, I got a Jalen Hurts, the limited, it's called, and it was the $175 version, and I got it like I get every jersey, and I got it. I did not like the fit. Thought the fit was terrible. I didn't like it at
The
all.
fit's not great.
I sent it back. Now, what I was seeing, because I saw like side by side pictures, because everyone going there were some that were 175.
Yeah, I saw
There were some that
Short
were
Parks had a
130.
comparison.
Yeah, the 130 I think is the jersey that I would get. It's the what used to be the screen print version of back when I was a kid, and you get the Reebok with the screen print, everything. I think that's what I would go, unless I were to somehow go and then just get the elite version, which is what you see the players wearing there. But I don't know. There's just something about, to me, there's something about older, authentic Reebok jerseys and the starter jerseys back in the late 90s and Mitchell and Ness jerseys. I just think those are more for the fan. They're a little bit bigger. You can wear a sweatshirt underneath it, stuff like that. I think the Nike really can't. I don't like the material, but again, that's just me. They're not going to stop doing that. Nike's the outfitter for the uniforms and everything. But like for me, I'm going with the $130 version because I don't like the 175, especially putting it on, feeling it, wearing it. I didn't like the neck, I didn't like the collar.
I think some teams need Reebok and some teams can't have Reebok. I think the Packers, great look with Reebok. Don't think, in my personal opinion, don't love the Eagles with Reebok. I think the Nike looks are better, but there's other teams I can't think of now. I think the Ravens, they have a pretty solid. I would imagine they have a solid Reebok look. Just the older jerseys kind of give like a vintage, obviously, look, and so I feel like Reebok, since that was what was the older brand with these jerseys, would make more sense. But I think Nike did a pretty good job. It was way overdue. They couldn't get the template for it for so long. I don't know. It made no sense, but I'm glad that they finally were able to master it.
No, I just the other thing, when you look at all these retro jerseys, I love Houston with the Tennessee with the Houston Oiler look. You have the Eagles. You have all these the Vikings doing from like the 1970s, plain but crisp. Love the look. I love all these jerseys coming back. I like the Dolphins, the old Dolphin. I think that needs to be their primary look. The Jets doing their look. I like all these throwbacks to come back and have teams wear it a couple times a year. I think maybe I like it too because it kind of reminds me of my childhood and being a kid and being younger and seeing this. It kind of brings you back to that.
Very nostalgic.
That nostalgic feel. Yeah. So again, that's why I want the Sixers to bring back the Iverson Blacks.
Yeah. I think some teams need to not need to, but I think like the Eagles, the Seahawks. What up, Jose? who else is it? It was Eagles, Seahawks, and there's one other team who
The
I
Bucks.
thought killed their throwbacks. The Seahawks, like I think those got to be their full time. Like it's one of the
Yeah.
crispest
I
look
agree
I've
with
ever
you.
seen in a long time. Like the blue jerseys, silver lid, silver pants. It's a clean look. Like Eagles color green, like clean look. There's one more team. Who else had throwbacks?
I think that
Bucks, Bucks,
yeah,
Bucks,
the Bucks.
Bucks. Theirs was they killed it. I think those are the jerseys that need to be full time, but never going to see it. But they're just so good. It's like I wish they would.
Yeah, no, I love what some of those teams have done. Some of the teams have absolutely whiffed when
The
you look
Colts,
at all of the jerseys they put out. Big time whiff. But like, and even teams now that I think they need to go back. And when you look at a team like the Titans, I think the Titans need to go back to what they wore, like when they went to the Super Bowl and in the early 2000s and stuff like that. I think some of the teams go above and beyond. There's a great on Twitter. It's NFL fashion advice.
yeah,
He posts,
he's cool. He's funny.
yeah,
He's very
funny
relatable.
stuff. He's got some great posts, everything along the lines of that. But just when you look at all of these teams and what they're doing with their throwbacks to these extra, this extra jersey, extra helmet, they're able to do some of these things. I think it's great because also it puts more revenue into the league because, your fans are buying the gear. Fans are buying. Look at the Eagles. They line up 4 or 5 in the morning for a place to open up at 9 o'clock, over 1,000 people to get in line to go and, get the Kelly green jerseys. I think it's huge when you look at also making money too.
Yeah, I think so. Last off season when the Eagles dropped the new watermark, I thought that was very interesting for different purposes. I thought maybe my original thought was they would just transition to Kelly green full time because it's hard to see the new watermark on those jerseys. Are they going to do it this year?
Well, the new the new watermark is not on the jerseys. It's the old watermark still, which I think is 100 times better than the new watermark.
So that's what I'm saying. That's very interesting. It's like, why are they changing the watermark? Are they not? Are they planning on like making a jersey change? Because you would think that like if you're gonna change that watermark, you would put it on the jerseys. So to me, it's like it seems like there could be a little foreshadowing of like a jersey change.
So I've heard the old font is coming back. Now,
really,
when the Kelly green, like when they play at home, the old font should be the end zones, which hopefully, because when you looked at those previous years when they wore those Kelly greens, it was the old font in the end zones, and the end zones were gray within the bird logo in the middle. I'm guessing that's what you're going to see, because that's what they wore. I've been told that. Don't know about the gray end zones, but the old font is definitely should be a part of that. So again, that's something to keep an eye out. I do know with the uniform aspect, the new watermark wasn't going to be on the uniforms. They said it last year until 2024. So we'll have to look at this next offseason and see. I don't know. I haven't heard anyone that really likes the new font over the old font. I know we can get used to it, but the old font was so much better. It's so much
yeah.
more.
I honestly don't mind it. It honestly kind of grew on me, but it's just because it's more of like a modern, slick look. Obviously, when it first drops, it's like, ew, what is this? Like the old one's so like more pleasing to the eye, and it's giving basic the new one is. But I kind of like it in the end zones more than I did the other one.
Yeah, I don't know. I
just because it filled up the end zones more. With the old one, it was kind of like a little congested, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because it was a more compact word mark. I know. I understand that. I don't like the new watermark, but again, that's just me. I don't run the team, nor do I have the finances to run the team. So what I say really doesn't matter when it comes to that kind of stuff. I can just give my opinion, and maybe someone listens, maybe someone doesn't. But before we leave, I am going to do a fun little game that I started with Chip the last couple of weeks. Chip got both questions wrong last week.
Who was it last week? I didn't tune in.
Well, it's Name That Philadelphia Eagle, it's called.
Yeah.
No.
But who was it?
I
didn't know the first one, to be honest.
Yeah, the Reggie White and Eric Allen. That was that one. He got Eric Allen. He didn't get Reggie White. And then, honestly,
was Eric Allen the first one?
It was Eric Allen interception and a safety in the same in a playoff game. So did those whatever. I forget the second question, but also the hard question I had. It was the second one I had was name the player that Donovan McNabb threw his first touchdown pass to for his playoff career. So his first in the 2000 wild card game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Little Kendall.
I'm cooked.
Were you even born yet?
I was a little young back then.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. See, I'm making you younger than you are. But it was Nate Brown. McNabb ran a touchdown, was his first touchdown in his playoff career. The touchdown pass was to Nate Brown. And then Jeff Thomason was the other touchdown pass. But he didn't get either of those correct. So the hard one that I had was name the Philadelphia Eagle who played with the Eagles, caught passes from 3 different Philadelphia Eagle quarterbacks, but only caught 2 career catches.
This is one from last week or this one now?
Yeah, this is from last week.
Okay.
And it was Brian Finneran from the Atlanta Falcons. He played 8 years with the Atlanta Falcons. I did have someone actually guess that correct. So
wow.
I try not to give too much information because with Google
There's
and
so
everything, they just try and look something up. But I'm going to play the intro, and then we're going to give Kendall 2, easy and medium question, and then we'll get a hard one.
Cook here.
Name that
Philadelphia Eagle.
So the easy question on Name That Philadelphia Eagle is back in 2010, the last time the Eagles wore Kelly Green, who was the original starting quarterback in that game?
Kevin Kolb, right?
It was Kevin Kolb, correct. It was Kevin Kolb.
Easy
He
money.
did get a concussion, and Michael Vick came in, and he had one of his best seasons of his pro career.
Can you imagine if we were in a situation where Kevin Kolb was our quarterback right now? Not necessarily him, but God, so glad Jalen Hurts is our quarterback.
Yeah. And that, unfortunately, that game was, you had the Leonard Weaver end of his, career-ending injury. You had Stuart Bradley, unfortunately, really was almost the end of him too. And then, of course, the Kevin Kolb thing. But so the medium question. This one kind of would be easy, but the medium question. Back in 2011, this was maybe I think a couple days ago. It was the anniversary of the Eagles signing Nnamdi Asomugha. That big contract. They get the prize free agent. This free agency started later because of the lockout. The day before that, the Eagles made an acquisition. Can you tell me what that trade was for a defender? I'll give you the team too, with the Arizona Cardinals.
Wow, I feel like when you say it, I'm gonna be pissed off.
I think you may. So I'm gonna give you
give me a hint of the position.
After I give you some suspenseful music. It's you're on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, except for you don't win any money. I'll give you a hint.
Wait, Cardinal defender.
Yes,
I definitely know him, right?
Goes by. Yeah, you'll definitely know him. He only played. I think he played 2 seasons with the Eagles.
Was he a corner?
He was on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not going to give you everything. The player he was traded for went to the University of Houston. Drafted in the second round.
This is going to be a bad guess. because I think the Eagles signed this guy rather than traded for him. But Jason Babin.
Jason Babin is not the answer. It is Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, who was traded for Kevin Cobb.
Dude. Yeah. Duh.
I tied both together.
I was on track with my defensive back corner guess. Damn.
No,
I didn't see that. I got one more question right now.
You want another question? I'll give you another one.
Yeah, I gotta get my redemption. For
you have
to
write your wrong.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, give me a different one.
Here's another medium one for you. In 2004, the Eagles in the NFC Championship beat the Atlanta Falcons. Their starting tight end Chad Lewis were to break his foot, and he would no longer be able to play in the Super Bowl. Which tight end did the Eagles sign to play in the Super Bowl, who had originally played for Andy Reid in 2 different stops?
Are you saying that year?
That year. So Chad Lewis gets hurt. I know you're too young, aren't you?
Cooked, buddy. Cooked.
I mentioned his name earlier. See, it's
cooked.
Jeff Thomason.
Right.
I mentioned it earlier. That's why I brought that one up, because I happened to say it earlier. So it's a fun little thing.
Question.
What?
There's not a hard question. Just an easy and medium.
Well, there is a hard question, but I'll say the hard question. You don't answer it on here. You can answer it.
Okay.
And then I usually post the hard question. Actually, the Chad Lewis one was going to be my hard question. So I'll have to just come up with one on the spot and just see if somebody can get it. It shouldn't be that. It's not going to be like a super, super hard question, but the Eagles, of course, brought back the Kelly Green. And the last, the big iconic player you see wearing the Kelly Green is Randall Cunningham. Randall Cunningham wore number 12. Now, there was a player in the Midnight Green. So the number 12 was given out when Andy Reid was the head coach. A player did wear number 12 twice. So both different positions. So 1999 and I believe in 2000. And then from then on, the number was not given out anymore. So again, the number 12, which is iconic with Randall Cunningham and the Kelly Greens, that number 12 is basically nobody has worn it since the preseason of 2 players wearing it in preseason in 99 and in 2000. Name those 2 Philadelphia Eagles. Again,
I'm gonna let the fans take this one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it is tough. I just thought I went off top of my head because I had the hard one, but I gave that one to you again. But with that, of course, it brings another episode of AATBirds Weekly Report to an end. We will, of course, be back next week. Going to talk some birds, training camp in high gear, preseason games coming shortly as well. So lots to talk about with the season right around the corner. So many different things coming. The one thing I do want to bring up is Philly sports trips. If you want to go to see any of the games that they have, but we are running 2 bus trips. We are running it to New York on October 15th, and we are running it to the October 29th again in Washington. Now, we were in Washington last year, but so if you want to go, take a look at phillysportstrips.com. You can get, if you live in the Lehigh Valley area, we have an Allentown pickup. So definitely sign up for one of those trips. We will be there. It's going to be a fun time. It was awesome last year in Washington. Couldn't have had a better time with everything that Vince and the guys over there at Philly Sports Trips do. They do such a great job with the tailgate, with the transportation, the tickets, getting everything organized. Everything is, A plus rated when you look at, bus trips and tailgating and everything that they do. Hollis Thomas will be there, a friend of the show. So definitely sign up if you want to join us. You can just put your $99 deposit, secure your spot, and then pay the rest at a later date. But definitely, if you're in the Lehigh Valley area or close to the Lehigh Valley area, definitely hit the All About the Birds when you sign up. There should be a spot on the bottom there that you can click that to make sure you get the Allentown pickup. So any other questions, you can always contact myself or Jeff, who's also a part. He'll definitely give you information as well. But definitely join us on one of those trips. It's going to be a fun time.
I would definitely be suggesting going to the New York Jets one because that's going to be a big game, and that's week 5, right?
It is week 5.
6?
Yeah, I think it's week 5. Week 5 or 6.
Jets have never beaten the Eagles, so I have a feeling that might be first loss comes to the Birds.
It's going to be a good game. That is absolutely for sure. But with that, always a very happy and joyful Go Birds.
Go Birds.
This is Matt Ware. Hey, for all the Eagle content you need, go follow All About the Birds. They do a damn thing. Check them out.
Hey, Eagles fans, I may be in Tampa, but I know where to find the best Eagles content out there. Check out my friends at All About the Birds.
Philadelphia, what's up? This your boy Freddie Mitchell, a.k.a. Fred X. It's all about the bird.
All birds all the time. All birds all the time.
All About the Birds provides you with weekly analysis, game recaps, informative interviews, and it's all birds all the time.